Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palmer. Chris Palmer, welcome back, my brother.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Even though I was out on vacation, I didn't stop watching. I didn't stop watching us. Didn't stop watching you do your thing while I was out. I didn't stop watching football. It keeps going.
Hey, the train keeps moving, brother, and we are here to bring you another week of football. So, Chris Palmer, you want to begin with our recap?
Yeah, let's do it. You know, this was another very interesting week. Little heart-wrenching when it comes to some situations that happen, but we'll get into those. Let's do it.
We'll definitely get into those. So let's start with the Thursday night game, the Washington Commanders taking on the Chicago Bears. And honestly, this kind of was reminiscent of last week's game of the Colts and the Broncos.
You mean the Uglies?
The Uglies. This was an ugly game to watch. But the Washington Commanders ultimately won 12-7. Oh, man.
It's funny to me that as soon as they put in Taylor Heineke, they win.
Well, Carson Wentz is not the answer.
He never was.
So let's move on to our Sunday slate of games, starting with the Cincinnati Bengals making the comeback to beat the New Orleans Saints. Your thoughts on that game?
That was another type of heartbreaker. Heartbreak for New Orleans, but Cincy's for real. And, us being in the AFC North, like, they're a team not to trifle with. But New Orleans is snippy. New Orleans fights. I enjoyed watching the highlights of this game. Joe Burrow's a stud. Jamar Chase is a different level of wide receiver.
Something with those LSU wide receivers, man. They are just crazy.
Yeah. What are your thoughts from this game?
Oh, man, the Bengals are for real. They scare me as a Ravens fan, but yeah, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, that's a lethal duo. But I gotta say, I like what I'm seeing from New Orleans. They remind me of Atlanta this year. They're just a scrappy team. That doesn't matter who you put them up against, they're just gonna fight to the end, and you'll love to see it. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely, I love to see it.
So you know who was another team that fought to the end? The New York Giants beating my Baltimore Ravens 24-20.
I told you.
And I was at that game, and I felt that heartbreak. But we have we'll talk plenty about that game. I have plenty of thoughts about the Giants and the Ravens, but brief thoughts on that game.
Yeah, the Giants simply outplayed you on both sides of the ball. Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson. He's great. He's the best person on the field when he's on the field. But the Giants as a unit, they're just getting better. And they're getting a lot better at a very rapid pace.
They are. They absolutely are. And we'll have plenty to talk about the Giants and the Ravens. But let's move on to an NFC matchup. The San Francisco 49ers and the Atlanta Falcons. And the Falcons taking it over the Niners 28-14. Tell me, how good are the Falcons?
If the playoffs were to end today, they're one of those teams that you just wouldn't want to play. They're like the Eagles last year when we were talking about them come the end of the year. If they made the playoffs, I wouldn't want to play them because they could just come out and roll. Shout out to Marcus Mariota for being NFC Player of the Week. 92% pass completion, 120 some odd yards, 3 TDs.
He is playing really well.
He got it done. He found the system that finally fits for him, and I like what I'm seeing out of him. And I like what I'm seeing out of that defense. I want to see more of it, but it seems like they're trying to erase the stigma of Atlanta being a notoriously bad defensive franchise, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that does make sense. But, hey, there's some great football being played out of Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree. But on the flip side of San Francisco, there's still nothing to trifle with, man. They may have gotten beaten, but they're a good team. They're still scary. You cannot count them out even though they got beat.
They are a scary team.
Right.
So, again, they're another team you just don't want to play in the playoffs.
No.
But this was a great game to watch, and they got some tough matchups ahead of them, both of them, this upcoming week. So let's move on to the New England Patriots taking down the Cleveland Browns. What was the final here?
38-15.
38-15.
Yeesh.
Bailey's happy.
Who?
The quarterback for the Patriots.
Bailey. Oh, that's right.
Bailey Zappi.
Mac is out right now. Okay, I forgot about that.
300 yards and a touchdown.
You see, that's just because Bill Belichick knows what to do.
He does.
He knows how to beat Cleveland. He knows Cleveland is a circus of a franchise when it comes to office, coaching, the whole nine. I'm sure he has a playbook this thick for specifically AFC North teams because for some reason, a lot of AFC, I would say at least 3 out of the 4 AFC North teams have a negative record against Bill Belichick. If not all 4. I have to look that up to confirm. But I know for a fact the Steelers are negative against Bill Belichick.
Yes. Yeah, they are. I think Harbaugh is probably just about even, but a little less. But obviously the Browns and the Bengals, he's owned them throughout the years. Granted, Belichick was even on the Browns.
For a day.
No, for a couple years. For a couple, it was the Jets, yeah. But even still, Belichick knows his shit.
Right.
So, but they have a Monday night game against Chicago this upcoming week.
Right.
So keep an eye on that game. We may see more Bailey Zappi. So let's move on to the New York Jets taking down the Green Bay Packers 27-10. Ooh, your thoughts on this game?
Took him out in style, man. Quinn Williams, man. I've been riding with the Williams brothers since they got drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn Williams, again, I'm going to give him a shout out. AFC Defensive Player of the Week. I think he had 5 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, and a fumble recovery in that game. Kudos to you. Jets and Giants, pretty exciting stuff coming out of the both of them, I got to say. It's been a long time since we could say that both the Jets and the Giants are positive in the same year.
So far, but there's a lot of season to go.
I agree there's a lot of season to go, but when teams that have been bad for years, you finally start seeing a little bit, you gotta hang on to something.
It all starts with coaching.
And both teams have bought into their new coach and are taking it in full stride.
Whew. One word for the Jets. Sauce.
Sauce Gardner.
Sauce.
I think the one word for these two teams, though, combined, is heart.
Sauce.
Alrighty.
Oh, man. So, Jets, there's a lot of good reasons to be cheering as a Jets fan right now. So, let's move on to another AFC matchup with the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Colts made the comeback, 34-27. This was, I don't think anyone expected this from the Colts because earlier in the year, Jacksonville shut them out 24-0. But I guess, they looked at the film. They saw, look, this is where we can attack them. And again, this is one of those divisional games where it's very close together. It feels like it wasn't that long ago until when they played. But that was week 2, 4 weeks ago. So
there's a lot of film in 4 weeks.
There's a lot of film, and teams, some teams start to get their stride a little late. But hey, it was a good win by the Colts. Jacksonville, they've been spinning. They had their good 2 wins, but they've been kind of spinning as of late. Your thoughts on the Jags?
I don't know about the Jags. There's still a lot of pieces missing in that rebuild before they can even really be considered. I like Trevor Lawrence. He needs help. He has little to no one. Who does he have as a number 1 wide receiver?
Christian Kirk.
He needs a number 2. Christian Kirk can't do it alone.
Well, they had DJ Chark, but they got rid of him.
That's because his attitude sucks.
Yeah.
And he wound up in Detroit. He's doing nothing in Detroit.
Detroit.
Jacksonville, they need more pieces. Indy, good showing. Hopefully that was a turn of the cards for you, and they can move on and start winning some games.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we'll see more out of the AFC South as the season goes on. So let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Dolphins. And the Vikings, on another roll, they moved to 5-1, and they beat the Miami Dolphins 26-10. Miami, after that 3-0 start, they have not found their footing. What's going on with them?
I just wanted, because I didn't get to put my thoughts on record about Tua. There was such a heartbreak just to watch, and getting he was diagnosed with the second impact concussion in a matter of a week. The NFL did him wrong. Did him so wrong. And that's why Miami is stumbling right now, is because this kid was about to have one of the best career seasons that he probably could have had. And it was ripped right from him. Personally, I feel he shouldn't see the field anymore, but he's expected to come back this week against the Steelers, which is rough.
We'll be talking about that game.
We will be, but anytime like the thought of Miami comes up, the thought of what happened to Tua comes up, and that shouldn't be because they were having such an electric beginning of the year.
I think Miami is one of those teams where they are the players on the field are great, but the front office and the management is just not where it needs to be. Because I think the Dolphins as organizationally failed Tua because they tried to get through a loophole, the concussion protocol loophole, in order to keep him on the field. But at the same point, like, he's going to do everything he can to stay on the field too. So he's going to go along with it. But at the same point, you got to protect the players from themselves. And it's hard because, like, as a player, it's like you don't want to let your team down. But it's like, as a human being,
you got to remember, this kid's only 24 years old.
Exactly. It's like you don't want to take that one hit that just changes everything. And like, we've seen it too many times in football where it just takes one good hit
and then your career
to change a person, not even a career, but to change a person's life.
I.e. Antonio Brown.
Just even historically, like, not a head injury, but I'm just thinking Joe Theismann. It just takes one play.
Alex Smith.
Oh, God bless Alex Smith.
Right.
I'm getting Alex Smith jersey.
I hope that, again, it's another turn of the cards. If he does get cleared to play and he comes back to play, I hope he comes back safely and soundly. Do I think he should be on the field? Absolutely not. And to piggyback off of what you said with the franchise failing him, the NFLPA failed him as well. There was a big failure in that whole situation. Mm-hmm. There was a failure to notice that a man hit his head and that he stumbled to the ground. I don't understand how that was missed.
Again, we all saw it too.
We all saw it immediately. We were like, that's a major concussion.
Yeah.
And he was back in to finish that game. He had no business being on the field.
No, but we'll talk more about the Dolphins and the Steelers in that matchup later on in this episode. But let's move on to actually your Steelers playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, beating them 20-18. I got to say, good job for calling this game.
I told you.
This did not go as I thought because, honestly, Brady did not play well.
No, he has not been playing well.
He did not play well. And also, like, he was really just looking at Chris Godwin the whole time. Mike Evans only got 4 targets for 4 catches, but you got to split the ball. I understand the Steelers' defense is really good, but there were so many missed opportunities for the Bucs that the Steelers' defense, they're not going to give those same opportunities to other teams going forward.
No.
So, especially with this upcoming week, Mika Fitzpatrick coming in.
Correct.
But we'll talk more about the Steelers later on. But give me your brief thoughts on this game.
On this game, I definitely liked what I saw coming out of Kenny Pickett. Mm-hmm. I think he's really starting to develop a good relationship with George Pickens. Mm-hmm. I liked that Claypool finally decided to wake up and figure out how to catch a ball. Finally, he figured out how to answer what he was saying last year, how he could be a top 5 receiver. Good showing. Now it's the injuries that are still hurting us, and we need to persevere until everyone's healthy. Mm-hmm. Minka's coming back. TJ Watt was supposed to come back this week, but looking off air today, I read that he had a arthroscopic knee surgery while being out on his pectoral injury, so he is expected to be back October 30th, which isn't bad. So then we'll get another piece back. As of right now, Alex Highsmith leads the league in sacks by half a sack. So our defense is still playing tough. Our offense is finally starting to kick. Don't fret. I feel like we're still going to be there to fight.
I want to see the Steelers prime time. Like Thursday night game against the Browns, I was with Trubisky.
It was a fluke.
I want to see what they look like with Kenny Pickett
in prime time.
and we will see that this Sunday, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
So let's move on to the Carolina Panthers and the Los Angeles Rams in pretty much a blowout, 24-10. The Panthers had it at the beginning a little bit, but then the Rams decided to wake up. And so Panthers are in absolutely tumbling. The Rams, they're winning against the teams they need to. I don't think this was anything overly complicated.
Right. This was kind of cut and dry. It was one team is better than the other. One team is so bad they wound up without a coach the next day.
Yeah.
Carolina fired Matt Rule less than 24 hours after the game, and then they traded Allen Robinson.
Was it DJ Moore? Oh no, what?
No.
Allen Robinson's on the Rams.
Who was the receiver they traded to the Cardinals?
Anderson. Robbie Anderson. Robbie
Anderson to the Cardinals. And they're listening to trades for McCaffrey.
Yeah.
So one loss, and they were just imploded on themselves completely. So they're completely lost now.
Baker Mayfield in a sinking ship. You'll love to see it.
That ship.
You'll love to see it.
Absolutely. You'll love to see it.
Let's move on to the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Seattle Seahawks, and Seahawks getting it done, 19-9. What's wrong with the Cardinals this year, man?
I don't know, dude. It's scary. It's really concerning because they were so good last year.
They were, yeah.
And you want to know it's really unfortunate. People watching may not think this matters, but it matters. The new Call of Duty comes out tomorrow, and Kyler Murray is just going to play worse.
He's an avid streamer, and so someone I forget who, but there was someone that did like the actual numbers of like if there's a double EXP weekend, his passer rating drops 10 points. Which doesn't sound like a lot. It just sounds like football analytic numbers. But essentially, it's like he plays subpar when he's playing double EXP weekend, which is just crazy to think about. You wouldn't think that an NFL quarterback would have that problem, but it's kind of funny.
It's almost hysterical to think about when you're supposed to be a professional, but you're like, I'm still going to be a nerd. Which is cool because it's like...
have your hobbies, I mean.
Like, have your hobbies, but you need to put it in the back pocket.
Know your priorities. That's the thing. It's like, know your priorities.
Like, at the end of the day, this may be a game, but you're at work. This is still your profession. You are at work. You have to be able to put it away for 17 weeks. And then you have it. Then it's yours. So there's no reason... Even... It's crazy to me that that's what happens when the WC weekend happens. But they need to get it together and get it together soon, or else they're going to be left very far behind in the AFC.
You think Kyler Murray pre-ordered? Oh, he definitely pre-ordered.
He bought the Vault Edition.
Oh, okay, yeah, he definitely did.
I'm pretty sure he plays on PC, so he's been playing Warzone.
Oh, yeah, he got that big contract, too. He wanted that money.
He got the major contract. Oh, and he argued to not have to do the private study.
Funny.
I feel like there's a little bit of calculation there.
Too funny, man. Let's move on to some really good teams. The Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs in that rematch of the AFC title game, and the Bills winning 24-20. Now, I wasn't able to see this game, but man, did I want to.
I wanted to watch this game too.
But this, instead of the shootout, this was the chess match.
Yeah.
And I like it. And I think that both quarterbacks played great, but Mahomes, he just had one of those games where he wasn't completely on his A game, and he just threw some bad picks. But you got to take that with Mahomes because he's going to improvise, and he's going to make mistakes. But Josh Allen and the Bills, they did not make mistakes. They had the one fumble in the beginning, and then they said they tidied up everything. But man, your thoughts on this game?
On Buffalo's side, it's hard to see anything wrong that they're doing, even with the mistakes they're making. It's like they're taking calculated risks, and sometimes they're coming up short, and that's the mistake that they're making, is that they're taking sometimes they're taking too calculated of risks. On Kansas City's side, like you were saying, Mahomes is going to improvise. Sometimes you can't have that. You can't have he's an elite improviser. Patrick Mahomes is an elite quarterback. I'm not saying taking anything away from him. Buffalo, what you see is what you get. They are in your face for 4 quarters. They are going to run it down your throat, and then they're going to pass it over your head, and they're going to score points. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs want to be that, but Patrick Mahomes needs to be reeled in from time to time, and being told this is what you need to do. You need to slow down on the improvising.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's October, this is when we see the hot streak of Andy Reid start to cool down a little bit. And this is the part of the time where now Andy Reid is going to have to start reeling in Mahomes, because where Andy Reid can start lacking as a coach is where Mahomes is going to try and pick it up with his athletic ability.
And there he's going to fundamentally lose his mechanics.
Correct.
And we've seen that before, where his mechanics are off.
Right.
But
that's when he starts doing the underhand passes, or he starts doing
too much.
You're doing too much.
Yeah.
He's panicking. When he's so good, he doesn't need to panic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be the downfall of the Chiefs this year, I feel.
Well, we'll see. We'll talk more about the Chiefs later on, because they have a tough game against the 49ers this upcoming week. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the Chiefs. But great win by Buffalo, the best team in the AFC right now. But let's move on to the best team in the NFC. The Philadelphia Eagles against the Dallas Cowboys. About them boys. Wait, how about them Cowboys? Oh, no, they lost. They fucking lost to Philly.
The Cowboys got their eyes clawed out by Philly, man.
That Philly defense showed up, and Philly ultimately beat the Cowboys 26-17, showing that Cooper Rush was just hype. He's mortal. He's a backup quarterback.
He's mortal.
He had 3 interceptions.
Yeah, but Philly, like you said, they're the best team in the NFC, and they're probably a Super Bowl favorite at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't even bat your eyes at it. It's what the fuck happened.
Coaching.
100%.
Coaching. It all
100%.
It all starts with coaching. And Nick Sirianni, we even said it last year when Philly is they become the number 1 rushing team in the league, and we were like, you can win with this. You can absolutely win with this. And 100%. They're showing exactly, not only are we going to win with the running game, but now our passing game is just as good as the running game. And it's, okay, when we can't run the ball, we'll throw it. When we can't throw it, we'll run it. And when we want to run it, we're going to run it. And their defense was like, hey, we're going to play defense. And
not going to be able to get past us.
They have, I have this stat for you. So Philly actually has the highest turnover ratio in the league. They have 14 takeaways to only 2 giveaways.
Wow. That's nutty.
They have the best turnover differential in the league, and teams that typically have the best turnover differential in the league are the best teams in the league.
And end up going to the Super Bowl usually.
Yeah. So Philly is just and their schedule only gets easier from here on out. So Philly, they'll probably be the number 1 seed in the NFC, and I love to see it.
This East Coast does not have an infrastructure prepared for a Philly-Buffalo Super Bowl.
Let it burn, baby. Let it burn.
The entire East Coast is going to end up in flames.
It's going to be a riot. Philly, the city of Philly will declare war on the whole state of New York, and it will just be amazing to watch.
Yeah, the city of Buffalo will declare war on the entire state of Pennsylvania.
I mean, I'm with it. I'm here to see it.
At the border, and they're just going to meet, then throw each other through tables.
We'll be standing in the flames together.
Yeah. Well, my team's in Pennsylvania. They're going to want to pop. But good things coming out of Philly. I like it.
So CP, you know how we had a really bad game to start off this week? It turns out we actually had a really bad game to end off this week, too, with the Chargers and Broncos. And the Chargers winning it in overtime, 19-16. And that was the Monday night game. And, man, that was just one of those Monday night games where it's like, there's no way this is going to overtime. The Chargers should have closed out this game. Justin Herbert threw for 57 passing attempts, and he completed, I think, 30-something completions. 300 yards, no touchdowns.
Yeah, and I was actually going to say that, piggybacking off of that, that is the most attempts taken by a quarterback and not score a touchdown in NFL history.
Just crazy. It's crazy to think about.
Especially because, again, last season, we were saying that this kid was magic. What is happening?
Is it him or is it the team?
I don't know, because I haven't watched enough of the Chargers, to be honest with you. And also, there's that lingering rib injury, the rib cartilage injury that he was dealing with a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
Listen, from having rib injuries, they don't heal 100%. You can move the wrong way, and all of a sudden you get a spasm that goes up your entire abdomen. And now you're playing full speed, no matter what happens. So if you take a lopsided throw and you get that, ooh, that's some pain.
It's not, well, we know Justin Herbert was playing hurt, but at the same time, there's a lot of key players on his team playing hurt as well. Joey Bosa, their left, Rashawn Slater, Keenan Allen, Joey Bosa, they're coming back. Rashawn Slater, he's out, and I think there's another lineman as well, also out for the Chargers. So their team is just not healthy right now. And once they start getting a little bit more pieces in, we'll probably see a better Chargers team than what we're seeing now. But man, the Broncos suck. The Broncos absolutely suck.
I cannot believe that Russell Wilson got paid so much money to play so bad. I cannot believe it. His field of vision is like this. It's like he forgot how to look at progressions.
It seems that he just, to me, and I know this, I'm using the medical terminology here, he has fat cat syndrome. And I feel that it's like he got paid. He got paid big bank money for a good amount of years, job security, good money. Like the whole team bought into him. It's like, well, I'm kind of good. It's like, well, the team is like, well, we're tailor made for you.
Right.
And you are the reason we are not winning these games because the defense, they are the number 3 defense in the league.
The Seahawks?
No, the Broncos.
Oh, the Broncos.
The Broncos defense. They are the number 3 defense in the league. They are not losing games. It is the offense.
For sure. It's the lack of point scoring.
Yep. They only scored, I think, over 20 points once this season.
That's rough.
And yet how they won games, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't understand, but that's another team that needs to get it together or they're going to be left behind.
Believe me, we'll talk more about the Broncos once this goes on, but I'm tired of watching them in prime time at this point.
It's hard to watch.
They had 3 primetime games already. And remember in August when we talked about we can't wait to see them? How has that soured? That has soured so bad.
I remember saying that Russell Wilson was going to need a couple of games to get used to playing with Denver, practicing in Denver because the altitude.
Mm-hmm.
I did not see this.
This is bad football.
This has nothing to do with altitude. This is just poor play.
Yeah,
it's poor play.
We'll talk more about the Broncos later on, but man, let's start by going into this week because we have some good games this upcoming week, and I want to start with the Giants and the Jaguars. And, man, you mind if I start this one real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I was at the MetLife this past weekend. First off, if you've never been to the MetLife, I highly recommend it because it is a fantastic stadium, and the parking lot is perfect for tailgate. It is meant to tailgate there because it's just one big giant parking lot of all encompassing around the stadium. Beautiful. We went on a coach bus. Beer, food were flowing. Everything was it was a great time. Even the game was great. But man, I saw something in the Giants that day. They played really well. They are a playoff team. They are absolutely a playoff team. It was as much as it was it was a heartbreak loss for my Ravens. The Giants played really well. They run the ball really well. They're great on defense. Daniel Jones, again, the only turnover he had was a couple seconds before halftime. He fumbled trying to throw a Hail Mary. Okay, that's you can't fault him for that. It's like that happens. No harm, no foul. Nothing came about it. You go into half, it's whatever. But man, he's solid. He was playing solid, but he's not the reason they're necessarily winning the games. It's Saquon. Saquon is just the motor. He's the motor to that engine. And I think for this year in particular, seeing a hungry Daniel Jones to prove himself and a hungry Saquon healthy to form, we're seeing the best out of the Giants. And their defense is absolutely great. Again, they're one of those defenses where it's a no-name defense. I know there's a few players on there.
The name of merit is really Thibodeau, the one they
Thibodeau, the rookie offensive lineman, but Jihad Ward, the linebacker for that, he's a really good underrated player as well. But man, the Giants look really good, and it was I can't take anything away from it. It was just a really good win that they had on Sunday, and it seems that they're playing every game to the fullest minute. Like they're playing from start to finish until it's 0-0-0-0. They're not out of the game. And that's one thing, like even in their loss to the Cowboys ultimately were the ones that had the ball last. If the Giants had it at last, that may have been a different game. They could have won that. But there's could-haves, would-haves, but they're 5-1.
Yeah.
They're 5-1. They have more wins so far this year than their entirety of last year.
Right.
And it starts with coaching.
I agree.
It really starts with coaching. And the Giants are playing great football.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. The Giants are absolutely playing unbelievable football. It's unfortunate to me. I feel that this will be Daniel Jones' last year in a Giants uniform.
Yeah, I see that.
You know, I still don't. He's not the guy for the Giants, but maybe they'll tag him. If he keeps playing this way, maybe they tag him for a year and see if it's not a flash in the pan year. It's a maybe situation there. Saquon Barkley, this is the best Saquon Barkley we've ever seen. I don't know where the hell this Saquon Barkley came from.
It came from,
but I love it.
It came from years in the cryo chamber.
Yes, it did. You know, year in, year out, injury, and now he's out and he's the healthiest man on the field, and he can't be stopped. These downfield runners, man, they can take hits and second chance opportunities coming from them. And that Giants defense, like you said, they're kind of no name. But I was saying it during the recap when it comes to the Jets and the Giants both. The one word that really comes to them is heart. Heart and grit. Like you said, they are playing to the absolute last second. Giants look like they're a very hard team to beat right now.
They do. They really look great. Brian Daboll's doing a really good job. If they keep this up and they win, I would say probably at least 10 games. I would say Brian Daboll would get Coach of the Year.
It's possible.
Because like that is a great turnaround to see. And especially, again, in New York, too. In one of the biggest marketplaces there is for football.
Huge markets.
And, man, New York loves their Giants because this stadium was packed. It was absolutely packed. And, you know, I saw the most Saquon Barkley jerseys.
I can imagine.
So many Saquon Barkley jerseys. And I can't blame you because there were just points in the game where they would pitch it out to Saquon. And the Ravens couldn't stop him. They just could not stop him. And it's really good. I like what I'm seeing out of New York.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that coin, when it comes to the Jaguars, they are in for a tough day. It is going to be tough playing that Giants defense. Trevor Lawrence is not going to have any form of room when it comes to pass rush. Having only one wide receiver against that Giants defense is going to be very tough. You don't have a running back, so you're going to be scrambling.
Mm-hmm. They have two running backs, but they utilize them differently. Honestly, from the Jags, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, their offensive line is their biggest issue right now. It's like they just can't seem to get that fixed because the holes for the running backs. They can run like what was it? Robinson, number 30 for the Jags, and then Etienne, their second year player as well. Those are some good running backs, but there's no holes for them to run, and there's no time for Trevor Lawrence to pass.
Right.
So it just seems like fundamentally they just don't have it. But they're on a losing streak right now. They had those 2 wins. They beat the Chargers.
Yeah.
And they lost to the Texans. And the Colts, who they beat before.
And now they're just spiraling.
Yeah, what do you see? What's the biggest problem for it? Is it their offense or is it their defense?
I think, definitely their offensive line is a big issue. But their defense is equally as bad. it's just as bad. They have just as many problems. Daniel Jones is going to throw all over them. Daniel Jones is like a Pro Bowl quarterback against that defense.
I think we're going to see more of him running on this defense.
Daniel Jones running?
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Because he can run.
Yeah, people he can run.
And I think that what's going to really throw off the Jags is when there's designed runs for Daniel Jones, I don't think they're ready for that. Because they're going to expect to try to stop Saquon. They're not going to, but they're going to try to stop Saquon because that's going to be the game plan. But yet, I think ultimately when Daniel Jones runs it himself, and then from there, like when they put everyone in the box, we're going to see some magic in the backfield.
Oh yeah,
like he's going to deliver the ball because when you see him throwing the ball now, like he's throwing pretty well. Mm-hmm. He's throwing very well, and that the big thing for Daniel Jones was turnovers, and he's just not turning the ball over, and it's winning football.
Yes.
Whereas the Jags, they're turning the ball over. They're not putting points on the board. They're not utilizing scoring opportunities. They're not protecting their quarterback. I hope that this is just a couple games skid that they can ultimately get out of because Doug Peterson is a good coach. I think he's a good coach.
I like Doug Peterson. I like him.
But I think Brian Daboll can outcoach him.
I agree. Brian Daboll is, from what we've seen him do with the Giants in one season, he turned it around real quick. So hopefully the Jags don't skid and land on their face this year. Hopefully they can pick themselves up by their bootstraps and they can get back to work and they can start learning and getting better. But I don't see it this week.
Yeah, I don't see it this week. I mean, it just, at this point in the season, we can see patterns. We see trends developing. And, we've seen the Jags historically trend the wrong direction very soon, very quick. And even their years, the very few years that they've been successful, they've had a model of consistency for a couple game stretch. Whereas here, we're just seeing them consistently play bad football.
Yeah, for years.
And it's just now is the part of the season where momentum's really going to carry over into games, and the Giants have all the momentum right now.
Yeah. And
the Jags, they are trying to get anything that resembles momentum.
Well, that's the difference between teams that are playing to win and teams that are playing not to lose. Giants are playing to win; they have something to prove. Jags are playing not to lose; they have everything to lose.
Yeah,
they have one star player in Trevor Lawrence, and if they don't get him some support quick on that line, he won't be around long.
Yeah, and final thought on the Jags is, look, that division is up for grabs. It's theirs if they want it, but they gotta want it.
Right, you have to want it, and it seems like they don't want it enough. This is gonna be a good game, but a good game to watch, but nothing pretty is gonna come out of Jacksonville.
No, let's see if the Jags are ultimately the Jags. But let's move on to another game of the week that we're really looking forward to: the Ravens and the Browns. Oof. Let's start this one again real quick.
Go ahead.
Again, I have so many thoughts on my Ravens. Again, great win by the Giants, and I really wanted to emphasize that on air. But man, the Ravens are they concern me. I have a lot of problems with them right now. I saw the big thing that really killed me was we've been saying the theme of this episode would be coaching, right? Because we've just put an emphasis on that. It was bad coaching. This was on John Harbaugh completely, because I saw too many penalties that took too many opportunities away from the Giants, from the Ravens. There were so many times we made good plays when we needed to make them to ultimately get called back, and everything gets worse. So, for example, I want to just so Ravens are up 20-17 in the fourth quarter.
Right.
We need to drive, just drive down the field. Don't give the ball back to the Giants. It's a 3rd and 1. We get the first down. Holding. We have to move back. Once we move back, the center flies the ball over Lamar's head, and it fumbles. So then he picks up the ball, tries to make something out of it, forces the ball to a receiver, and it gets picked. Giants take the ball, go down the field, score a touchdown. Okay. They're up 4. Ravens still have a chance to get in this. So we get the ball back. Second down. Lamar fumbles the ball. Giants get it back. So the Giants have the ball back. 24-20. They try to punch it in. They throw it. Daniel Jones, it's intercepted by the Ravens. But then it's pass interference. So the interception gets called back. And it just, throughout the entire, it wasn't just those parts, but it was a running theme to see throughout the game. Too many flags for my liking by the Ravens. There were some by the Giants, but it was mostly by the Ravens. And it just showed a sense of undiscipline. Like, we were not disciplined for this game. And the Giants played a cleaner game. They played a better game because they ultimately won. Our defense has a lot to be like. Lamar played great until the fourth, until those 2 plays just absolutely destroyed everything. The interception and the fumble destroyed it, and then from there, like, our defense is just a trend. We have a big lead. We have a 2-possession lead, over 2-possession lead. Blow it, blow it.
Now let me ask you though: does that fall on John Harbaugh, or does that fall on the coordinators on the side of the ball that are causing the penalties?
Not calling the penalty. Well, it's coaching.
Called on. I understand you're saying it's coaching.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting it all on the head coach.
Yes.
Now hear me out. You said it was an offensive holding.
Mm-hmm.
Your offensive line coach is responsible for the offensive line.
Yes, but then it's also defensive pass interference.
Your skills guy, your skills coach,
but
defensive skill coach is responsible for
if you're not coaching it, you're allowing it. And I think that to allow that to happen, it starts with it. Like, you're right, it does come from the offensive coordinator and the defensive, from those sides of the ball, respectively. Those coaches, they handle it. But at the same time, John Harbaugh oversees it all.
Oh, for sure.
And so, I think that to allow this many penalties, I put that on him, because the specific coaches involved, yes, you don't want to teach that. But at the same point, they're doing, bless you, they fall under John Harbaugh's responsibility, mm-hmm. and I, for this loss in particular, I put this on John Harbaugh. Again, Lamar, bless you, you could ultimately got us out of the game, but this game should have been a lot more than what it was, and it was just really heartbreaking to see that game. It was a rough one. It was a real rough one as a Ravens fan.
Well, it hasn't been pretty for the past couple games for the Ravens.
It's win, loss, win, loss, win, loss.
Yeah, pretty much. But Browns caught a bad case of the uglies. They caught a bad case of the uglies. This game is going to be definitely a turnaround game for you guys, I feel. So long that you guys do get those penalties in order. Browns get more penalties than most teams that I've seen, other than Dallas, of course. Dallas is one of the most penalized teams in the league, if not the most. Browns have a lot of issues. Ravens are starting to form issues. Rashad Bateman, I believe now, is still questionable to play. If he doesn't play, does that hurt?
It does, because from what we've seen of Rashad Bateman is that he's doing exactly what the Ravens need him to be. And it's yes, we want a number one, and he can get to that. And Lamar's getting him his targets, but we're still committing to the ground game. We're still ultimately our offense still derives from the ground game. Bateman, he's a very integral part to the offense, but we're not necessarily dependent on Bateman. Mm-hmm. Now, Mark Andrews, on the other hand, he's Captain Clutch.
There's a sense of dependency there.
There's if he was questionable, I'd be a little bit more concerned, because he really is just. He can make the case for the best tight end in the league. Him, Kelsey, and Kittle are just all in their own tier of tight ends. But But yeah, I'm just right now. I'm just in the mindset of like just watching the Ravens beat themselves. That it's like for me thinking of like playing against the Browns. It's like we'll be playing against ourselves, but the other team will just be there. And I think for now the Browns will be there. They'll be like, "Wait, are you hitting yourselves? Okay, we're gonna run this for a touchdown with Nick Chubb.
We're gonna be over here with Kareem Hunt
and Nick Chubb. We're just gonna run this ball." So,
yeah.
But I think I do want to talk about the Browns for a second. Final thought of the Ravens. I was there for a rare moment. Watched Justin Tucker miss a field goal.
Watched it bang off the post.
It banged off the post. How rare is that? How rare is that?
It's almost unheard of for him to miss a field goal.
It's rare.
I'm sorry.
I know. I know.
The mighty will fall. I want you to know that.
No, he's still fine though.
I'm sure he'll still be fine.
But it's just one of those rare moments. Just
it's a glimpse of the end, is what it is.
no, we got him for another 3 years. We're fine.
Okay.
You're 3 years too early.
I'm saying it's a glimpse. I'm not saying it's there. It's a glimpse.
It's a glimpse. It's foreshadowing.
It's in the future.
But let's talk about the Browns for a sec. I do want to say this. Again, they're another great running team. They got to give the ball to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But I think this game against the Patriots, it really shows the limitations of Jacoby Brissett. Where it's like he's a solid backup, but that's all he'll be is a backup at this point. And I just don't think that like the running game will only get them so far. They couldn't win it against the Patriots. They couldn't do it against the Falcons too, where a team that plays until the end. And it just really shows the limitations of Jacoby Brissett, and they got good wide receivers. They got Amari Cooper, like he's a good wide receiver. They got Donovan Peoples-Jones. Do they still have Austin Hooper? Or is he out of there? I think he's out of there.
I think he's out.
Yeah, he's out.
I can't think of off the top of my head where he
Njoku.
is.
Njoku's the tight end.
David Njoku, they still have, yes. You know, they definitely still have good pieces. It's just they have no one to throw to them.
Yeah.
So, and again, Deshaun Watson's probably not going to play a snap this year.
Well, he comes back week 11 against the Texans.
As of right now, but remember, a couple weeks back, he got hit with yet another accusation.
Yeah, but they already sentenced him at this point. I don't think they're going to add on at this point. But either way, I don't think the Browns, if we're going to start seeing a trend from the Browns, this is it. Like, they got their wins, but I think the gravy train is over. Like, the running game, like, will beat bad teams. Like, when they play against bad teams, they'll beat them. They played against Carolina. They beat them. Atlanta. They lost them. Saints, you don't know what you're going to get from the Saints. But they, and I believe, do we play the AFC West? No, we play the AFC East this year. So they will play, and even that's not easy because they got to play against the Bills, and they lost to the Jets, and
they got to play the
Dolphins, and they lost the Patriots. So,
right,
so it's not going to get easier for the Browns. So running game is good. Everything outside of that, I don't buy.
I don't buy the Browns one bit. I never did. I like that run game.
I love Nick Chubb.
Love Kareem Hunt.
They're great.
As a player, love Kareem Hunt.
As a football player.
Let's not get that one twisted. But no, I do not buy into the Browns' offensive or defensive scheme, even with Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
I don't buy into it. They need a lot of work.
They do. But hey, divisional games, you never know what's going to happen in divisional games.
That is correct.
But let's move up. Sleeping on me over here?
Shut up, you.
You sleeping? You tired over here?
What? When you're the night guy, you get tired.
It's okay. Let's save it for the night guy.
I am the night guy.
So let's move on to another team in the AFC North. The Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Speaking of the Falcons. Man, Falcons are playing good. Bengals are playing good. And even though this is going to be between the AFC and NFC, both teams are just, I don't know, I like that win for the Falcons last week against the 49ers. I think everyone kind of took the Niners expecting the Falcons to roll over. But ultimately, they played great. Marcus Mariota played fantastic. Their young offensive pieces they're getting the job done. And their defense, I got to see more from their defense. But we were speaking off air, but it's like we know how talented the 49ers offense is. And with all their offensive talent between Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, Wilson, like they have great offensive pieces. But Falcons stopped them. They held them to 14 points. And we know how talented the Bengals offense is. Jamar Chase, Higgins, Boyd, Joe Mixon, and Joe Burrow himself. Can they hold the Bengals? That's going to be tough to do 2 weeks in a row against really talented teams. But I like what I'm seeing from Atlanta.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I like what's coming from Atlanta. This is going to be a big test for both that defense on the Falcons. If they can get home and get to Joe Burrow, it's going to be a statement for that Falcons defense. And it's also going to be a lot to say about, again, the investments into offensive line that have done nothing in Cincy.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have the opportunity to stop Jamar Chase, you want to talk about a staple into saying we are a contending defense? Sheesh. But on the flip side of that, everyone knows the Bengals are for real.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a true test for the Falcons. This game is going to be real fun to watch.
This is going to be real fun to watch, actually, because both teams are playing very well. And I got to say, Arthur Smith, their head coach, he doesn't get a lot of praise or a lot of recognition. But so far, if they can keep going in this direction, and they're 3-3, their record is the same as the Bengals.
Yeah.
So it's not like both teams are like one's dominant than the other. Like both teams won games that people didn't expect, and they lost games that they probably shouldn't have. But man, Atlanta's looking good. The Bengals are looking good. And Bengals defense, I have a little bit of concerns though. Their pass rush is just not up to par. Their secondary is fine. They still have Jesse Bates on their secondary, but their defense, as their best player is probably Will Hill was his name, or was it Tristan Hill or Will Hill? Tristan Hill. So he's a good piece on that defensive line, but honestly, like they just can't get home. And you saw it against the Saints too. Like the Saints have a good offensive line, but
not that good.
They're not all-stars. They're not like the Browns or anything like that, where they got a great offensive line, or the Eagles. The Eagles have probably the best offensive line in the league right now. Like Jason Kelsey's like having probably his best year as a center, which is shout out to Jason Kelsey, shout out to linemen in general, because the games are typically won and lost in the trenches. And I think the Bengals, their weakness on the offense is their offensive line, and their weakness on their defense is their defensive line.
Yep.
And it sucks, though, because Joe Burrow is just one of those quarterbacks where their offensive line, they put money into that. They put big money into like getting talented players to play for Cincinnati on the offensive line, and he's still getting sacked. And he's still getting sacked every game.
At least 2 to 3 times. I believe he's still on pace to getting sacked over 100 times this year.
I think the one game that he had the fewest was against the Dolphins. He was only sacked once. But there was a lot to that game. So
yeah, there was a lot to that game.
But nevertheless, like we're seeing trends here, and the trend is since he cannot protect Joe Burrow, but when Joe Burrow has time, he's fantastic.
When he has the time in the pocket, he's almost unbeatable. He's the best player on the field when he steps on the field. He's another one of those. These teams are in the same vein right now. If the playoffs were to happen today, you do not want to play either of these teams.
No, absolutely.
You do not want to play these teams. The Falcons, they could just come out and they could chip you down and beat you. The Bengals could just come out and blow you out on any given weekend. If that offensive line can click for all of 2 quarters, and that's all they need. You give them a half of football where you let Joe Burrow sit in the pocket and let it rip, that's a 4-touchdown half. It could easily turn into a 4-touchdown half. But that still remains to be seen on how long he could actually be given sustained cover.
I just hope he doesn't get hurt.
No,
I really hope
he doesn't
because
get hurt.
his rookie year is like I heard on his,
ACL.
yeah. So and that was cut short, and then when we saw him have a full season, he made it to the Super Bowl.
Right.
So now let's see him stand up in the pocket, and because he just all it takes is just one more second. You give him one more second, you give him 3 seconds clean in the pocket. That's all you need.
That's the average for what an offensive lineman is trained to hold a defensive tackle for. Is between 2 and 3.5 seconds. Anything after that, you're almost asking too much. 5, 6 seconds in the pocket, you don't see that. You see that in the elite linemen of the league. Like you see that in the Jason Kelce's, where he's hanging on to his man for the entirety of the play.
Mm-hmm.
You see that with, going to give a little bit of a throwback, Michael Orr, when he was in the league. You know, he held his man until the whistle blew. He didn't stop. It's very far and few where you see a lineman that's trained to go outside of that average pass block realm.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bengals don't seem to have it at all. Anywhere close. 1-2 seconds max. You know, when he does get time to sit back, that's when he has to look at Jamar Chase or Tyler Boyd. You know,
Higgins.
Thank you, T. Higgins. I always get him and Hunter Henry mixed up. I don't know why. I always do.
It's the H's.
Yes, it must be. You know, if the Falcons get home, the Bengals are in trouble. For sure.
Grady Jarrett, defensive lineman for the Falcons, he's going to have a field day.
Yep.
He's going to have a really big day.
He is.
So
I like this game.
This is going to be a great
This
game.
game's going to be a lot of fun.
Any final thoughts on this game?
This game's going to be a lot of fun. If anyone gets the chance to watch this game, please do. I think, personally, tail of the tape, I think the Falcons are better going into this game.
Hey, I'm interested to see who your pick is, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But let's move on to probably actually the Super Bowl rematch from 2 years ago. The Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers.
The dreaded show-off in the end zone.
Yep.
Oh, I remember.
You remember that Super Bowl.
I do remember that Super
remember
Bowl.
that
It took
Super
a minute, but I remember that Super Bowl.
That was a good Super Bowl. And now this is the rematch. But both teams are different now. Like they're both for different reasons. Where the Chiefs, they had to undergo a lot of offensive changes in the past 2 years. They had to get better on their offensive line that following year, and then they also had to. Now they have new receiving pieces. They have a completely new wide receiving core than the last time the 49ers played them. And the 49ers, they basically kind of have the same core guys there. They have Jimmy G, they have Debo, but they're just injured. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of injuries right now. Nick Bosa, I believe, is injured. I'm thinking Joey Bosa, but no, Kinlaw is injured. I know Kinlaw is injured. Woodward is also injured as well. So they have some injuries in their defense. Key players, yeah. So, but I think both teams, this is a very evenly split matchup because it's going to be kind of similar to what we saw last week, where it was the Bills and the Chiefs, where it was a chess match instead of a shootout. And I think that's what we're going to see this week. We're going to see a chess match between Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And, personally, I love watching coaching battles like this, where you have two coaches that are well vetted into the league, especially with the teams that they have. The tenure of Andy Reid, of course, supersedes Kyle Shanahan's, I feel.
Of course.
But Kyle Shanahan is still a very, very good coach. He's high second-tier coach. And, of course, they have a history playing each other, not only in the Super Bowl. This is going to be a real fun game to watch, too. But, again, like I was saying, when it comes to the Chiefs and comes to Patrick Mahomes, where he tries to do all these improv things when it comes to picking up the slack of Andy Reid where he falls short. He needs to get it together where the 49ers, again, they're another in-your-face team. Like, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and now you need to stop it and answer it.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't do that, the 49ers could absolutely come away with this one. They could absolutely come away with this one.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm just thinking right now, Kyle Shanahan, coaching tree. If we're really going hard, if we're tripling down on coaching this episode.
Okay.
Coaching trees. Coaching trees are basically like the generations of coaches. Like when coaches teach coordinators, and then coordinators ultimately become head coaches.
Right.
So Andy Reid, he derives from the Mike Holmgren coaching tree. Mike Holmgren was a coach back in the 90s for specifically the Green Bay Packers of the 90s, where they won a Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Right.
Kyle Shanahan obviously derives from Mike Shanahan, the Shanahan coaching tree.
Right.
Coach of the Denver Broncos in the 90s as well. Now, when those two teams met in that Super Bowl, it was the undisciplined, fun, young quarterback in Brett Favre, who is can make all the best improvisational plays against the structure of a solid running game and solid defense of Mike Shanahan.
Right.
And it's crazy to think about that both those teams then are very similar to these teams now up against each other right now.
Pretty much.
And I think that when you think about it in history, it's like when you look back at that game in particular, Brett Favre, as great as he was, he just ultimately made mistakes that cost his team the game, and the Broncos ultimately capitalized. In this, if Mahomes makes mistakes, just as he did last week against the Bills, the 49ers will capitalize.
Yeah,
They will absolutely do it because their team is too good and too good as a foundation, from the offensive line, defensive line, secondary, weapons. Obviously, the biggest question mark of their talent is their quarterback, of Jimmy Garoppolo. Can he win you games? Obviously, he does win games, but he doesn't do it like Mahomes does, where putting up 300 yards and 3 touchdowns a game. But he hands the ball off. He gives it to his playmakers, and I think that if last week was the start of the trend, as you were mentioning earlier, where he gets into those mechanical slumps, this is going to be a rough game for the Chiefs.
Yeah,
because the Niners are just too good, and they will not give the Chiefs those same opportunities to cash out. If they do, then that's going to be the real difference in this game is turnovers.
Right.
Who wins the turnover battle?
In this, I feel like the 49ers would, because that Chiefs secondary gives up a lot of yards.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the 49ers defense they're playing hurt, Joey Bosa's down, they still cause a lot of issues for opposing offenses. And to piggyback off what you were saying, that Jimmy G can't be that, isn't really that quarterback that'll get you 300 plus yards and X amount of touchdowns. Doesn't need to be.
Exactly, yeah.
Because of who he has around him and who he has as a coach. With Kyle Shanahan, he knows how to win games without putting all that pressure on your quarterback. We can play a full 60 minutes without blowing all the lights out doing touchdowns. We put up 21, hold them to 10. And that's a full game.
Mm-hmm.
If we can put up 14, hold them to 3. And that's a full game.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a 30-point blowout to say this team is great.
Mm-hmm.
This team is great because we're what we like to call the blue-collar team, where they're going to come in, they're not going to score a lot of points, but they're going to do everything by the book, how it's supposed to be, in your face. They're not going to stop all game. Physically. And if you start messing up fundamentally, mechanically, they're going to capitalize.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens, the game in particular, it's going to show a blueprint on how to beat the Chiefs and how to beat them bad. Because if Mahomes and the Chiefs start messing up mechanically, this is where I see the detriment of Tyreek Hill coming in. Because when Patrick Mahomes started getting all unraveled mechanically, what did he do? He let it ride and let the fastest guy in the league go get the ball. You don't have that anymore. So I feel like this is where we're going to see if this is the Patrick Mahomes that comes out where he starts scrambling a lot. He tries to do the plays, and that could be the downfall.
It could. The question is if it's a trend or not. And I
hope it's an anomaly. Once it's an anomaly, twice it's a pattern.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Mahomes is playing great, even until the fourth quarter of last week's game. Yeah. But it cost him the game. You turn over the ball at the wrong time,
it'll cost you.
It costs you.
Every second counts. Every minute counts. And the closer you get to the end, the cleaner you have to play. And if it comes down to the one mistake too many. You make one mistake, whether it's a read, a pass, a play. You're not calling an audible, not calling a hot route, not calling a hard count. You have any idea how rare it is to see a hard count anymore? You know, a lot of teams, they come in, they do their plays. You know, you hear them call like their blue 98s and stuff like that. That's not a hot route. That is a hot route. That's not a hard count. The only team that I personally saw this past weekend specifically call hard counts was Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers loves going on two.
Oh, he loves it.
He loves going on two to the point where he fools his own linemen. That comes with lack of conditioning and coaching and fundamentalism in Green Bay.
Coaching.
Correct. They need to figure something out they have to reel in Patrick Mahomes before it's too late. And if this is a game where he starts unraveling, it's going to be rough.
Yeah. Mahomes is just one of those quarterbacks where it's like when he's great, he's phenomenal. But when he's bad, it's hard to watch. But you know, we'll see who will ultimately win this game. But let's move on to the final game that we want to discuss: the Sunday night primetime. The Pittsburgh Steelers against the Miami Dolphins. Ooh, what a game. Chris Palmer, I will give the floor to you.
So, about last week, again, I loved what I got from Kenny Pickett.
Mm-hmm.
I liked what I got from Najee Harris. He's great. He's a good running back. But, man, our second-string rookie, Jalen Warren, coming in, second-string running back.
Number 30, right?
Yes, wearing James Conner's old number. Kid's a stud. George Pickens is deciding to really step up as a number one. Mm-hmm. Chase Claypool is seeing that, and as a teammate, he's starting to step back as a number two, and that's letting him get his own pressure taken off of his own shoulders, and he's starting to catch. He can catch a football finally. He caught a receiving touchdown last year. Last week, he had a great week last week. Unfortunately, Kenny Pickett went down with a concussion. High hopes for him to come back this week. Micah Fitz, like you said, he's coming back this week. He was out for, pretty sure it was 3 weeks with a knee injury.
No, because he was there 2 weeks ago against Buffalo. Yeah.
Okay. Did he play the full game? I didn't watch. I didn't notice.
I didn't see. I wasn't able to see that game.
I didn't notice if he played the full game or not. But he was definitely out last week with a knee injury. He's expected to be back this week. So he's coming back for a revenge game against the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
Playing his old team. Are they in Miami?
I was going to say, turn the page. They might be in Pittsburgh, but let's take a look. It's in Miami.
It is in Miami. So it's going to be hot. That's going to be an issue for us, I feel, playing in the heat of Miami right now. I was just in Florida. That's where I was. The humidity is something else, and turf fields, they don't help. They just don't help.
Did you see any Dolphins jerseys in Florida?
No, but you know what I did see? I saw a Cowboys Deion Sanders jersey.
You gotta respect
I
it,
can't
though.
help but respect it.
I respect it.
I saw one of those. I saw a Steve Atwater jersey too in Universal Studios.
I give much respect for that.
You know what I'm talking about?
That's real, recognizing real right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Realest man in the room walking around type jersey.
That hit on Christian Okoye.
One of the hardest hits of NFL history by far. If Kenny Pickett is cleared to play this game, we have a very solidified shot at winning this game.
Mm-hmm.
And going on our first little win streak of the season. We got a good win last week. We had outstanding pressure on defense going against Tom Brady with his offensive line. The offensive line in Tampa, I feel, is better than the Dolphins' offensive line. So if we can get the same, if not a little bit more pressure on the Dolphins, whether Tua plays or not, it's going to be a hard day for Miami. Our issue is going to be our cornerbacks because our cornerbacks are still hurt. That receiving core is lethal. Minka Fitz coming back in, it fills a key hole, but we still are missing Cam Sutton, and we're still missing, I believe it's Witherspoon.
Witherspoon, yep.
And we're also missing Edmonds still. So that's 3 of our cornerbacks that are down. So we were also missing Levy Wallace, which is another quarterback. Right.
And also your quarterback, too. So
and our quarterback down right now.
As of this recording.
Right. So if Mitch Trubisky comes in, it's, again, just having to persevere through the injuries. And I believe in Mike Tomlin, of course. I believe that he can persevere through just about anything. Being able to throw together an 8-8 season with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, that sells what he can do.
It's impressive, but it's not this year, though.
I guess it's not.
It's not this year.
I'm just saying it has. That is.
It shows how great he is. Yeah.
Of Mike Tomlin. Mm-hmm. My issue with our coaching staff is Matt Canada.
Can you tell the people who
the
that is?
Offensive coordinator, Matt Canada.
Okay.
My issue with him is his conservative play when it comes to pass schemes. Very high percentage of our pass scheme this season has been inside the numbers within 10 to 15 yards. We have talent on our wide receivers. Historically, the Steelers are good at skills. We draft great skill guys always. Let them play. Let them run. At the end of the win last week, I believe it was our kicker who made a comment to Matt Canada.
Yeah,
Chris Boswell. It wasn't face-to-face to Matt Canada, but you see there's a video of Matt Canada going into the locker room, going nuts, and then right behind him is Boswell, and he says, "It wasn't because of you, and I want you to know that." So,
Savage.
Was it a jab at Matt Canada? Not confirmed, but you can almost guarantee that it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because all season it's been very conservative play and making the Stars deal with nothing.
We know how great Chase Claypool is, and for this to be the first
Johnson, George Pickens, Freiermuth.
Yeah, for this to be the first game, and I'm just using Claypool as an example. For this to be the first game that we really saw Claypool show out. It's like it shouldn't take to week 6 for him to have a great game because he's a great wide receiver.
It shouldn't have taken. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah. It shouldn't have taken 6 weeks to get our first receiving touchdown of the year.
Exactly.
And that happened with Kenny Pickett and Najee Harris. It didn't even happen with a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little dump screen in the red zone that went for a touchdown. It was wide open in the flats, yes, but even still, it should not have taken 6 weeks for a passing touchdown to occur.
Yeah, no,
that comes on coordination. If you're throwing 10, 15-yard passes the entire game, sooner or later you gotta toss it downfield because the defense is gonna push up and they're not gonna let that happen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to adapt. So you, as a coordinator, coaching, you need to adapt as well. And Matt Canada has not done it yet. and I'm waiting for it to happen. This is the defense to do it. This is the defense to really let loose and let the stars fly. And let Kenny Pickett, granted that he plays, let it loose. Let the ball go. He likes to throw the ball. He's not afraid to throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
He's not afraid to throw the ball into coverage because he trusts his receivers. He knows what they can do. He knows what George Pickens can do. He knows what Chase Claypool can do.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what Freiermuth can do. He's not afraid to get the ball there. You got to set the play. He's too young to say he's going to change a play at the line of scrimmage for right now. After next season, that's a different conversation. But this year, you have to give him the plays that are going to make him succeed. And he has not been given the plays to make him succeed. He's had to improvise and make it happen.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100%. And that's the thing is, like, you don't want to stunt his growth as a football player. Like, you want him to thrive. And, like, he's on a great team. Obviously, the offense is not perfect, especially on the offensive line for you guys. But, you guys have, like, I agree, like, you guys have ultimately had great wide receivers and tight ends over the years. And it's the classic cliche for the Steelers where it's like they don't, They don't rebuild, they reload.
That's exactly what we do. And, the one thing that I've always... It's a double-edged sword with the Rooney family. They don't fire coaches.
No.
They let coaches run out of their contract and they let them go.
Mm-hmm.
So if Matt Canada has to run out his contract and this is how he's coaching, not a fan.
Well, Tomlin's safe. I think
Tomlin is safe, yes,
I think
as a head coach.
I think for Canada, he's a coordinator. Coordinators are different than coaches. So there could be a change. I think we'll probably see it at the end of this year. I agree with you. We'll probably see Matt Canada right out the rest of this year, and then from there on, we'll probably see a different coordinator take the helm next year for the Steelers, and then for the team that you guys have now, you guys can still win games, especially against teams like, say, the Bucs. And this game against the Dolphins, it's still a winnable game. Even despite being hurt, it's still winnable because of coaching. Now, Mike McDaniel, he's been on a 3-game skid since Tua got injured. But
again, Tua's plans to come back this week. So
let's see. Let's see how good the Dolphins can be if they can recapture that 3-game magic in the beginning of the season.
That's going to be hard.
It's going to be extremely hard, especially against the Steelers.
Especially with the recovery of a double impact concussion. If Tua touches the field, I feel like it's going to be very limited. I don't see him playing a full game, and if he does, it's going to be rough because right now we still carry the sack leader in the league with Alex Highsmith. So our defensive line is still getting after it. Cam Hayward is still getting tackles behind the line of scrimmage. Alex Highsmith is still doing great. Devin Bush is playing out of his mind this year. He has developed, since the knee injury when he got drafted, he is playing out of his mind this season. Brian Flores has helped this kid develop into such a linebacker. It's unfreaking believable. I love what Devin Bush has become.
I want to see more of it. I want to see more.
Yeah, without a doubt. What are your thoughts on this game?
I'm torn. I'm torn between this, and I haven't decided who I think is going to win this. Probably until we actually make our picks. So speaking of which, would you like to make our picks?
Yeah, let's make our picks for the week.
So let's start with the Thursday night game. The New Orleans Saints playing against the Arizona Cardinals. Who do you got?
I'm gonna go with the Saints on this one. I'm starting to lose hope in Arizona. It's hurting me to admit that. Because I was riding high on Arizona and the Raiders, but they're both just hurting me right now. It hurts to watch them. They're painful. So I'm gonna go New Orleans.
Well, I'm gonna go New Orleans as well because Call of Duty comes out tomorrow. So Kyler Murray, even though D Hop's probably going to pick up some of the slack, I'm going to go with the Saints. They've been playing better than we've expected with
All right.
Andy Dalton.
So Tampa, Carolina with a new head coach.
Tampa.
Tampa.
Tampa hasn't been playing good, but Carolina's been a bonfire. Like, they've been a tire fire.
They are just a rolling dumpster fire. I can't help but agree with you, but Tampa is not much better. This is going to be an ugly game. This game is going to be ugly. It's going to be hard to watch.
Yeah.
Atlanta and Cincy.
I'm torn on this one, but I'm going to go with Cincinnati. I just think that ultimately the Bengals are a better team, better coaching, home field advantage. They're coming back with a little momentum. I know Atlanta has a little momentum to them as well, but I think a comeback really carries over more, and it gets a team believing in itself more than, say, like an outright win. And the Bengals had to come back against the Saints, and I think that really gives them that extra confidence going into this game.
I agree with you there, but I'm gonna, for the sake of just hoping that something else happens, I'm gonna go with Atlanta.
Okay.
I liked what I saw out of that Atlanta defense. I really hope they can get after it and get home and get after Joe Burrow and give him problems. I don't know. I feel like it says something in this game that
I want to watch this game.
This game is going to be fun. It's
Yeah.
really going to be fun. And if Atlanta does win, this might be the upset of the week.
Maybe. I mean, we got a couple games there. There might be a good couple amount of upsets this week.
Speaking of possible upsets, Cleveland and Baltimore.
I hope not. We're gonna go with the Ravens, baby. If the trend is win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win.
This is a win, right? You know what? I'm gonna go Baltimore as well for the sheer sake of the respect that I have for the franchise and just lack of hope for Cleveland. I don't buy into Cleveland one bit.
Yeah. But Nick Chubb is going to give us problems. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, they're going to give us problems.
If the wrong Baltimore team comes out, it's going to be a hard day. And you know what wrong Baltimore team I'm talking about.
The one I saw last week.
Correct. Detroit and Dallas.
The return of Dak Prescott.
Is it?
Yes. He is.
Confirmed?
It is
He's gonna
confirmed.
be
Dak Prescott will be starting this game against the Lions. I'm going to go with Dallas. Not so much for Dak, but I think that defense is going to be a problem for Detroit. Even though they're coming off their bye, they still have a couple players injured, a couple key offensive players injured, and Dan Campbell has not won a road game at all. He's 0-11.
His career?
Dan Campbell as a head coach, yes.
Oh, my God.
Yep. So I'm going to go with Dallas on this game.
See, I think I'm going to go with Detroit on this one.
Okay.
Because I still like what I see coming out of Detroit. Yeah, their record is not well, but they're playing.
They're playing hard. They're very entertaining, and I like what I'm seeing out of them.
I feel like this is going to be another very enjoyable game to watch. The return of Dak. That Dallas defense is for real, of course. But hopefully that Detroit team can come out and light some sparks and see what happens.
We'll see.
You light the right spark, something can explode.
Yeah.
Giants and Jacksonville.
See, I'm going to go with the Giants just because I just think from seeing them up close and personal last week, they look complete. They look really complete, and I think you're catching. Sometimes again, like we said before, it's not who you play, but when you play them. Mm-hmm. And I think for the Giants to play the Jags just as they're starting to be spinning a little bit, I think they'll take this game and run with it.
Yeah, I can't help but agree with you. I'm going to go with the Giants as well. I feel like the Giants are going to move up again. It
would be 6-1 if they were to win this one.
And I feel like this is going to be a real unwinding for Jacksonville. This is going to be an unraveling because they're not going to be able to stop Saquon Barkley, and it's going to be a blueprint for how to beat a team and how to beat them bad.
Yeah.
Indy versus Tennessee. Uglies.
Who you got this game?
I don't know. I really don't. This game is hard. I think I'm going to go Tennessee.
I'm going to go Tennessee as well. Mike Vrabel off bye, rested Derrick Henry, and they already beat Indy before. I I think I'm going to trust Vrabel on this one, and I'm going to go with Tennessee.
Okay. Green Bay and Washington.
Now, if Green Bay does not win this one, we're probably going to be talking about them next week because they are in trouble. But I'm going to go with Green Bay. They should win this game. If they don't, there's problems.
You see,
oh my God, I see you. I see you. I saw what you. Oh my God.
Saw what I just
Tell
did
them
there.
what you just did.
I just checked off Washington to win this game. They were supposed to beat the Jets last week, and they lost by 17. Ron Rivera is a very good coach, and he's very good at studying. He's going to pick apart every single piece that the Jets succeeded with, and he's going to reenact it, I feel. This is going to be a reenactment of last week. I see Washington winning, and Washington giving them a pretty good beating. Which can just happen because of just how shitty Green Bay is playing and how bad Aaron Rodgers is right now.
Yeah, they. Like I said, if they lose this one, we're definitely going to be talking about them next week.
Oh, they're in trouble if that happens. Jets and Denver.
I'm taking the Jets, and this is actually a game I feel confident taking the Jets in because of how bad Denver has been. Jets are playing well. It's momentum. It's really the momentum. Jets believe in themselves. They believe in Robert Saleh, and the Denver, they do not believe in Hackett, Nathaniel Hackett. They don't believe in him. I'm taking the Jets.
You see, I'm going to go with the Jets too, and as awesome as they're playing, it's very bittersweet because a friend of mine and I have a gentleman's bet that I made before the season started that the Jets would not win 5 games this year.
Well, whatever, you're going to lose that bet.
I'm going to lose that bet, and I'm going to lose it humbly. But even still, I have to go with the Jets on this one. The Jets are very exciting, both defensively and offense. They're really starting to click. I like Zach Wilson.
I like him too.
Battle of the Wilsons.
One word. Sauce.
Will you stop?
Sauce.
We're going to move on to Houston and Vegas.
I'm going to take Vegas. Again, this is a game where they should win this. Coming off a bye, off a bottom-tier team. But if the Raiders lose this game, they are the worst team in the league. And because the Texans would be right there with them. But
what if Green Bay loses their game?
Green Bay would be ahead of the Raiders. The Raiders would then be 1-5.
That's true.
So I'm taking the Raiders. They should win this.
I'm going to go with the Raiders too on a sheer wing and a prayer and hope that this is
it's your soft spot.
A table turning game. Yes, they're my soft spot. It is what it is. They're one of my teams that I like to watch, and they've been hurting me a lot this year. But I feel like this will be a good turnaround game for them. They're gonna walk into a home stand against Houston, which is a battered and beaten team. They just can't. They're the team that can't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
Now, if they tell the Raiders to get out of their way, while they can't get out of their own way, the Raiders are in trouble.
Yeah.
And again, when it comes to the AFC this year, the more games you lose, the further behind you get left.
Yep.
And they're already 1-4. If they go 1-5, it's too far gone for them, I feel.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to Seattle and the Chargers.
I'm going to take the Chargers. They didn't look as good as we'd like them to last week, but I'm ultimately going to take them. I have a little bit more faith in them than I do Seattle.
I'm going to go with Seattle on this one.
What are you smoking?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Seattle. I kind of like what I see coming, and I can't believe the words coming out of my mouth. I like what I'm seeing out of Geno Smith.
We're in the end times, folks.
This is pretty unprecedented times. It's almost like we're in the time warp where it's, how is Geno Smith playing well? And how is Justin Herbert throwing 50-some-odd times and not scoring a touchdown?
What's the word?
Coaching. And look at the coaching that's happening in Seattle right now.
Pete Carroll's proven he's a good coach.
Right. He's pretty much answering the question of if it was Russell or if it was Pete.
Yeah.
And it was Russell.
Who was at fault or
Who was at fault?
well, so far, again, the season's long. A lot of things can happen, but Seattle has been very impressive this year, I will say.
So this is going to be another pretty exciting game, I feel, though.
I'm excited. I'd like to watch this one.
Kansas City and San Francisco.
I'm putting my hope in KC as a bounce back game. San Fran's hurt. KC, I don't know. I just trust Mahomes and Andy Reid. I think they're just a really good team, and it's going to be a tough matchup. But ultimately, I think that they can win it.
This is ultimately going to come down to what we've been talking to nauseum this entire episode. Is going to come down to coaching. At the end of the day, it's going to be like who's going to outcoach who. Andy Reid could and will probably outcoach Kyle Shanahan. But if they come in with the same energy and temperament that they went into with that Super Bowl, the first 3.5 quarters, they're going to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go San Francisco.
Okay.
On this game. And because I love what's happening with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk.
Deebo.
I personally like Brandon Ayuk a little bit more than Deebo. I think he's a little bit tougher, a little bit stronger. He's not as fast, but his hands...
tougher than Deebo?
I think so. Unpopular opinion. This is going to be a very, very fun game to watch. But yeah, I'm going to go San Francisco on this one. Pittsburgh and Miami.
Who you got?
Pittsburgh.
See, this is again. I haven't decided yet. I'm gonna go with Miami, and I think that the reason being is Miami's greatest strength goes up against the Steelers' greatest weakness, which is their wide receivers against your hurt corners. And I think that's going to, like, Minka Fitz, again, he's going to eliminate the deep ball. And I don't think we're going to see Tyreek Hill 60-yard bombs or anything like that. But I think we're going to see Tua dink and dunk a victory. And I think they're going to keep the game plan simple. They're just going to be like, hey, look, distribute it to the playmakers. Don't make anything complicated. They'll probably ultimately do the same thing. If Kenny Pickett plays, they'll ultimately do the same thing in Pittsburgh. Like, look, distribute the ball. We're not going to go anything deep, but we're just going to kind of, keep going. But I'm gonna go with Miami. I think they can get back on track.
And then the final game of the week, Chicago and New England.
I'm gonna go with New England. Chicago's not looking good at all.
No, they're not.
Bailey Zappi.
I'm going to go with New England for the sheer fact that Bill Belichick owns young quarterbacks. He does. He bullies young quarterbacks, and that's what he does. He makes them not want to be on the field.
He does.
And Justin Fields is a young quarterback, and he's not going to have a good time.
Absolutely not.
Is there any final thoughts on to this week?
We got some great games this week, and I'm really looking forward to it.
That we do. Guys, that is our picks for the week. Please leave a like, a comment if you agree with us, if you disagree with us. It is great to be home. It is great to be back.
It's great to have you back, brother.
It's great to be side next to you. Please. Oh, another thing. We are trying to set up interviews. So if you feel like you want to have an interview with us, please send either myself or John Halpin your email, and we will try to schedule something. Thank you, guys.
Hey, we'd love to have you on so we could talk more football because, hey, we have plenty of football to talk about. So if you want to join us, be sure to contact us, and we'll be sure to get back to you. But until then,
we are Let's Talk Football, and let's get ready for another rockin' week.
Absolutely, brother.
Here we go.